Hey, this is Brass Check, and I'm recording this on December 1st, 2025. And we're going to talk about Fred Hampton, the anniversary of his cold-blooded murder. And when I describe how he was killed, if you don't know the story, you will understand the cold-bloodedness of it. Um, is December 4th. It happened in 1969, so this is the 56th anniversary of his death. Um, Fred Hampton was one of the most admirable Americans who ever lived. And he was deliberately targeted and struck down by the FBI and local Chicago police and sheriffs at the age of 21. So I'm going to read some stuff here in case you don't know. By the way, if you're waiting for Black Lives Matter to even mention the name Fred Hampton, forget about it. They're never going to tell you the guy existed, let alone give him the honor that he is absolutely due. Um, all right, now searching around on my internet here, trying to find the thing that I'm looking for, and hopefully I'll find it. But so far, I'm not finding it. This was all lined up beautifully. First thing to keep in mind is he was killed at 21. That's an awfully young age to die. So let's find out a little about him. His name was Frederick Allen Hampton, born August 30th, 1948, assassinated December 4th, 1968 at the age of, excuse me, 69 at the age of 21. I'm going to keep saying that. Uh, he was a local organizer. He was the deputy chairman of the National Black Panther Party. Now, if you don't know, and the chair of the Illinois chapter. Now, if you don't know the history of the Black Panthers, it's really something worth looking into. Um, he founded the anti-racist, anti-classist Rainbow Coalition. You ever heard of that phrase, the Rainbow Coalition? Well, that was appropriated by numerous deviants. Um, he's the one that invented it I mean, how much younger can you be than 21, right? Um, it was a prominent multicultural political organization that included the Black Panthers, um, the Young Patriots, which was a white group, the Young Lords, which was a Puerto Rican group, and he formed an alliance between major Chicago street gangs to help them end fighting and work for social change. I mean, how young is that, man? To carry that, to pull that off, right? To get to obliterate this fake racial divide and bring white people, black people, Puerto Rican people, whoever, whatever people together to A, stop killing themselves, and B, to work together for social change. And that's why he was targeted by J. Edgar Hoover. Hoover considered him a radical threat, and they did everything they could to. I mean, he barely had time to get started, but he was on there. And this is how it works, guys. They've got a radar system. They're looking for leaders, and if you're really effective, whatever color you are, whatever age you are, if you're really effective and you're going against what they want, they will flat out kill you. Now, in this case, they barely bothered to do it with any kind of skill at all. So let me read about how they killed him. First of all, they had what do you call this guy? What would you call him? A criminal. They somehow subverted Fred Hampton's bodyguard. And he needed a bodyguard because of all the harassment that he was getting from the police. And his bodyguard's name was William O'Neill. And so what William O'Neill did for the FBI was O'Neill provided the FBI with a floor plan to Hampton's apartment. Okay. They showed him, exactly where he'd be sleeping, which room, which bed. He shared his security routines with them. Um, they talked about weapons that he turned out, illegal weapons that he turned out not to have. And we'll go back to that later. And any vulnerabilities that he had. So when the raiding officers, and I believe they were sheriffs working with the Chicago police. I mean, what an epic group of criminals, the Chicago Police Department. Thugs and criminals. Um, Endless examples of that. So anyway, when they broke into his apartment, they knew exactly what room to go to. They knew exactly where the bed was. And they killed him at point blank range. But to make this even more certain, they gave William O'Neill, their informant, uh, second secobarbital, right, which is a powerful, basically knockout drug. And this fellow O'Neill was posing as an assistant to Fred Hampton. One of his jobs was, to make tea and coffee, Kool-Aid, whatever, for the boss. So before, uh, 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 so late the night before he was murdered, late at night, O'Neill came in with a drink for Hampton that was laced with this second secobarbital, and so he was knocked out when they broke into his apartment. He was completely unconscious. He didn't move. He didn't respond. And they just plowed him. How many shots did they fire? Over 100. Now, his partner was in bed with him. She was pregnant at the time. I mean, how much more savage do things have to get? Um, and this little detail of this powerful barbiturate um, only came up later in the court cases. So why did they do? What was their pretext for doing this, for murdering this admirable young man? Well, they had a search warrant with false claims of illegal weapons. By the way, remember Waco? They had a search warrant too with false claims of drug dealing, entirely false, based on nothing. That's how they justified getting the military equipment and the military operators um, to torment and then murder the people at Waco. So this is an old trick. They found a crooked judge. Not hard to do. Pretty easy. And they got a search warrant based on false claims of illegal weapons. The warrant alleged that he had illegal weapons, that he was in possession of stolen weapons, and that the weapons were to be used in interstate crimes. And where did these accusations come from? Dogged investigative work by the great law enforcement community? No, they were just claims made by William O'Neill, a paid FBI informant. It's dangerous out there, folks. But the warrant was bogus. They could not find illegal weapons. They could not find stolen weapons. Um, there was somebody else, I guess, in the room, and one shot was fired that did not come from the police. Um, and the courts claimed that this was a violation of the civil rights of Fred Hampton. Now, this was part of COINTELPRO, which, if you don't know what that is, please look it up. And he was classified as what? A black nationalist hate group. Does that sound familiar? Except now in 2025, they're flipping it. Now it's a white nationalist hate group. You see how that works? They make things up. He was no such thing. He was militant. He was outspoken. He took no shit. But what was his goal? To bring peace to his neighborhood, to bring social services to his neighborhood, to bring unity to his neighborhood. And for that, he was murdered. So there is no legal justification to do the things the FBI did just by simply calling Fred Hampton, member of a black nationalist hate group. Isn't it interesting? We think the hate group thing was invented in the woke 2000s. No, they were using this in 1969. We have deep historical amnesia in this country. Um, so there's no legal criteria. It was created internally. Like I declare you a threat to the planet Venus, and therefore I can do X, Y, and Z to you based on my own guidelines. So the bureaucratic rationale, not a legal rationale, allowed them to surveil Hampton, wiretap, pay informants, provoke, create provocations, do a raid, and in their own words, neutralization, which is a interesting term. Sometimes they would neutralize leaders by, um, creating havoc within their organizations. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is give them barbiturates at late at night. Have your paid informant poison them at night, and then shoot them nearly. It wasn't over. I'm sorry. It was nearly 100 times while they are passed out in bed. And the memo, the 69 memo from the glorious FBI. By the way, people are finally waking up to what a criminal organization the FBI is. It's a little late, folks. We've been talking about this, not me, since the 60s because I was just a kid, but certainly starting in the 80s, I've been talking about it. And now maybe some other people are getting a clue. So he was called a key militant Black Panther leader. And since it was a national, what does he call it, a black nationalist hate group, that made him target number one. He was extremely dangerous. That's not a legal term, by the way, extremely dangerous. Capable. Now, here's why they killed him. In their notes, they said that he was capable of unifying the black militant movement. Apparently that's a crime to bring people together. And the memo explicitly recommended preventing his rise by, drumroll please, any means necessary. And in his case, this wonderful 21-year-old man, this great American, by anybody's standard, was murdered in cold blood. Um, he was charged with something involving a stolen ice cream truck. The Black Panthers were deemed to have robbed an ice cream vendor by giving away free ice cream to neighborhood kids and shoving the vendor. Even police witnesses admitted under oath that this claim was absurd. It never happened. This is now, do you think a guy that managed to bring peace among violent young men in the ghetto, white, Puerto Rican, and black, was in the business of provoking people pointlessly, stealing ice cream from an ice cream vendor? Does that even make any sense? It never happened, and it never made any sense. And yet, it was enough to paint this young man, 21 years old, as a violent criminal. He was sentenced, by the way, for that non-crime, and he was appealing it, and he was out on appeal, not in jail. He was sentenced, by the way, to 2 to 5 years for robbing an ice cream truck, which not only never happened, but made no sense. But once they did that, now he's a convicted violent criminal, and that provided the additional justification for ongoing surveillance, and it helped justify the weapons warrant. What else? He was charged frequently for being involved in public disorder, and that means bringing out people for demonstrations. You're allowed to demonstrate in this country, at least you used to be. And based on that, and that's a misdemeanor, based on that misdemeanor charge, again, more grounds for surveillance, excuses for search warrants, public justification for calling the Panthers a lawless group. You really should look into what the Black Panthers actually did. They promoted gun rights, and they organized feeding, for children, and they brought peace to their neighborhoods, and they organized people against the abuse of police in their neighborhoods. Um, so who was involved in this? The state attorney, these wonderful state attorneys. In this case, a guy named Hanrahan, and he was planning to run for higher office, and he needed some law and order victories. So he was looking for the highest profile target he could get, and thanks to our lovely news media, that was the Black Panthers. He used the illegal weapons warrant to craft a major gang bust narrative. Okay, this suddenly, it wasn't just a guy had some guns, which turned, illegal guns, which turned out to be false. Now it's a major gang bust. And therefore they worked with the glorious FBI. And they spent months on this. Okay, they planned it out to every detail. So they wanted to know where what was his security routine, what was his daily routine, where was his bedroom, where did he sleep. They had help with a paid informant, and that paid informant drugged, poisoned Fred Hampton, so he was knocked out cold when they came in and shot him nearly 100 times. Um, December 4th, a moment in American history that we should all be aware of every year. Nobody ever talks about this guy. Nobody ever gives him any credit. Nobody remembers him. Nobody remembers what was done to him. If you want to know why we don't have leaders in this country, the Fred Hampton story is the perfect explanation. You can thank the FBI. You can thank local scummy politicians. And you can thank the corrupt, epically corrupt law enforcement community. This is one of the great disgraceful episodes of the entirety of American history, and we should never forget it. And we should look at the great things this young man had done, and who knows what he could have done. He'd be in his 70s right now, an elder statesman, bringing sanity and peace to a country that needs it. But instead, they murdered him at 21.
Brass Check TV, free to you, not free to us. We've got a server bill, we've got an email software bill, we've got a tech helper bill, and that happens every month. So to everybody that is supporting us financially, that's paying for their subscription in one way or another, we really appreciate it. If you're not, consider doing so. Everybody's got money for the newspaper and the cable bill and all that. Do you have money for media that's actually serving you? That's really the issue here. And when you help us, it allows us to get this information out to the world. So thanks to all our supporters, and if you're not a supporter already, please consider becoming one.